Okay, I'm going to talk about man-made global warming. I'm going to simplify it. Because when you simplify things, I find you tend to cut right to the heart of what the problem is. So, and that way it's easier to talk about, and also anybody can understand when you simplify stuff. Full disclosure, I love Mother Earth. I am anchored right now in a bay, undisclosed bay. And I love being in nature. I hate pollution. I hate the big corporations that for profit, they pollute. We have to find a way of harmonizing with nature. And I'm all for, I'm with the environmentalists. Now, there are extreme environmentalists. Man-made global warming is going to destroy the planet. Now, they don't say pollution. I'm against pollution. But they say man-made global warming is going to destroy the planet. And, well, what I'm going to show you now, hopefully just clear things up. These days, it's not called man-made global warming anymore. It's called climate change. The reason why it's called climate change is because they try to prove that man-made global warming is real, and there's like people that prove it and disprove it. There was 50-50. So they couldn't get anywhere with that. So they changed the name to climate change, because that's something they can prove. They can prove that the climate changes, and it does change. It changes all the time. Climate been changing since the Earth is here. There's ice ages. There's warming ages. I mean, the oceans drop by about 500 feet when it's the ice age. When it was called global warming, there's a lot of the powers that be they had certain plans, certain laws and stuff like carbon taxes and all bunch of stuff like that. Those plans that were for man-made global warming, what they did is they said, okay, those plans are not going to be for man-made global warming because we can't really prove it outright. So what we're going to do is we're going to call it climate change, and we're going to use all the same plans for man-made global warming, carbon taxes and all that. The same plans, we're going to use it now for climate change. The same plans as before when it was called man-made global warming. They just changed the name. They do this all the time. The word, or the headline doesn't work. They just change the headline, but everything in the back remains the same. So this is not another global warming video. I mean, there's tons of them out there. The majority of them, like on mainstream media and all that, they're all say, man-made global warming. They call it climate change now, but it's all the same thing. They're been pushing the same thing the whole time. Like I said, it's almost 50-50. They prove their stuff, then they prove their stuff, and then they argue their stuff, and then they argue their points, both sides. You're not going to get anywhere with that. I'm not going to talk about that the temperature always fluctuates all the time in history. The temperature's been going higher and lower. I'm not going to talk about that in history over 10,000 years. The temperature fluctuates like crazy. I'm not going to talk about that the CO2 follows temperature and not the other way around, like Al Gore used to say. There's always been ice ages every 10,000 years. I mean, both sides agree on that. I'm here to talk about a number that both sides agree upon. It's the most important number, in my opinion. So what I'm going to tell you is not disputed by any of the sides. There's overwhelming agreement on both sides for what I'm about to tell you, and I think that's the most important thing to make you decide if you believe in man-made global warming or not. So what regulates the temperature on Earth? What does Earth use to control, or what does Earth have to control the temperature on the Earth? Well, both sides agree it's greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases regulate, control the temperature on the planet. And both sides agree that man is making carbon dioxide, CO2. I'll say CO2 from now on. And CO2 is a greenhouse gas. That's what the whole argument is about, right? It's like greenhouse gases control the temperature on the planet, and man is adding CO2, a greenhouse gas, to the mix. And this is supposed to lead to disaster. So let's look at all the greenhouse gases that the planet uses to regulate temperature. Water vapor is the most important greenhouse gas. It's 95% of all greenhouse gases. CO2 is 0.5%, 0.5%. And then there's some other greenhouse gases that make up the rest. However, we're not looking at water vapor, and we're not going to look at other gases. We're going to look at what everybody's talking about, the CO2 gases. So let's look at all the CO2 gases. Now, this is not disputed, more or less. I mean, by the way, all these charts I'm showing with percentage, I mean, they're not going to be precise because we don't know the precise number. I'm giving you a rough idea, a pretty accurate rough idea of what both sides are saying, are agreeing upon, which is of all CO2, man makes about 3.5%. Now, it used to be 0.5%, but then after studies, okay, it's 3.5% roughly. Of all CO2 gases, man's making 3.5% of all CO2 gases, right? Now, don't forget, the CO2 gases, right? All the CO2 gases only make up 0.5% of all the greenhouse gases that control the temperature and the weather. Remember that. We're making 0.0175% of all greenhouse gases. Now, both sides agree, more or less, it's that number, 0.0175 of all greenhouse gases man makes. So you have to say, you're going to say 0.0175 is going to lead to disaster in 10, 20 years. Or you say, listen, that is so little bit that it's not going to have a impact that we probably can even measure on the planet. So it's one side. So that's it. So forget about all the global warming videos out there, the for it, proving against it, it exists, proving that as it doesn't exist and all that. Like, real global warming does exist. What you have to ask yourself is, does 0.0175, is that going to make the Earth worse? And a lot worse, obviously. Also, the mainstream media, like usual, they pick one side of, and there's probably a reason for that. Call it the cabal. In the mainstream media, they've been pushing man-made global warming, which is now called climate change, forever, since I can remember, like for 30 years at least. And so that's one side. So if you want to see one side of the argument, just watch TV, just watch mainstream stuff. You know, that's one side. Now, if you want to see the other side of the argument, which is very hard to find, but there's this one particular video, tons of scientists on there too, and reports and this, that. It's called, it is a little bit old. I think it's 2005, but nonetheless, it's called, everything in there is true. Maybe some numbers are a little different, but it's called The Great Global Warming Swindle. So search for that if you want to see it. I think there's videos on YouTube now, or you could rent it, whatever. So that's if you want to see the other side. If you want to know more about what I'm talking about, or just want to see the other side of the argument, because there's always the other side of the argument. Remember, there's a prosecuted defendant. You have to look at both. But you could find it out there, and it's full of facts that you could verify, you could vet, you could double check, see if it's true. So anyway, I hope this cleared up a lot of things about climate change, also known as man-made global warming. I hope that cleared everything up. I think maybe now you have a better idea of what's going on. So with this knowledge now, you're free to believe that 0.0175, is it going to cause disaster or not? Or is the sun? I mean, if you want to know more, I believe the sun causes all the climate change in our solar system. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, comment, ask me anything. Tell me I'm an idiot. Tell me I'm right. I don't really care. I'll try not to answer all the questions. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Love, light, and healing.